I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV. I know the problem, you've got just one policy. You do the opposite of what the Donald does. Don't know what you believe just because you got that TDS. You've tested positive. There's nothing I can do for chronic low IQ. It's TDS. Open the borders, let Mom Donnie pick your pocket. Let the boys beat the girls, they got that extra rocket. A theology degree from Starbucks. You declare that America sucks. You got that TDS. You tested positive. There's nothing I can do for chronic low IQ. It's TDS. If you're red, alright, let's get this party started. If you're left, you're blue and probably retarded. Like Rosie, De Niro, Jimmy Kimmel, Kathy Griffin. No kings, no kidding, we don't live in Great Britain. If J6 was the worst thing you've ever seen, Soros, burning Sadies, a mostly peaceful thing. Bring back the cartels, commute their crimes, sack the fact checkers like the New York Times. He's a Nazi, a fascist, a racist dictator who lets you say what you want to say.
Luke, I am your daddy.
You got that TDS. You tested positive. There's nothing I can do for chronic low IQ. It's TDS. No matter what he says, you must be really dumb, 'cause you keep blaming Trump for your problem.
Side effects of Trump derangement syndrome may include violent behavior, delusions, nightmares, insomnia, irrational hatred, hopelessness, anxiety, depression, blue hair, tantrums, inability to form coherent speech, difficulty maintaining gainful employment, and verbal diarrhea.
There's no cure in sight.
Rennie Good was a gifted soul, a writer and a poet and a mother, wow. She tried to hit an agent with her car, oh no! Pop motherfucker, now she's gone! Yeah, yeah, yeah! Being a fucking liberal is a mental disease. Blue-haired and fuckables with the septum ring. You are not a hero, you're a fucking disease! You fuck around and find out it's what it is! Jeffrey Pretty was a Jewish homo. Started talking shit to protect a chomo. He was getting nicked when he pulled a gun. Bam, motherfucker, now you're gone. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Being a fucking liberal is a mental disease. Blue-haired and fuckables with the septum ring. You are not a hero, you're a fucking disease. Fuck around and find out what that is.
On Election Day 2026, insurgent candidate Spencer Pratt looked like he might flip Los Angeles to the Republicans. edging out socialist candidate Nydia Rahman, setting up a runoff between former communist turned Democrat incumbent Karen Bass and the Republican Pratt. But then something strange happened. After 5 days of counting extra ballots, the socialist Rahman came up with just enough ballots to overtake Pratt, meaning that no matter what happened in the runoff, a Democrat would continue to run LA into the ground. How did the Democrats do it? To answer that question, we need to take a trip down memory lane. The Democratic Party was founded in 1828. Shortly thereafter, party apparatuses such as Tammany Hall institutionalized election theft by stuffing ballot boxes, repeat voting, casting ballots for dead people, bribery, intimidation, absentee ballots, ballot harvesting, and importing voters from outside areas. An audit of a New York City election in 1868, for example, found that 16% of all votes cast were fraudulent, cooked up by Democrats in Tammany Hall. In 1948, Lyndon Johnson infamously stole a Texas Senate seat thanks to the drop of 202 late votes in ballot box 13, giving LBJ an 87-vote victory. That brazen election theft made it all the way up to the Supreme Court, which ultimately didn't want to get involved and washed its hands of the matter. As a result, LBJ went on to become vice president and then president of the United States. In 1994, Democrats tried to steal a state Senate seat in Pennsylvania. On Election Day, Republican Bruce Marks led Democrat William Stinson by over 500 votes. But the absentee ballots curiously went overwhelmingly for the Democrat, giving Stinson just enough votes to win overall. In that case, happily, a federal judge found that Philadelphia election officials had illegally delivered hundreds of absentee ballot packets directly to the Democrats, who in turn collected votes from people who were ineligible to cast votes, when they weren't forging the votes outright. Democrats ran precisely the same absentee ballot playbook in 2003 in the East Chicago, Indiana mayor's race, fraud we know about only because the Indiana Supreme Court decided to get involved, ordering a new election, which the Democrat fraudster happily lost. Democrats' reliance on absentee ballot harvesting became so widespread, especially in states such as Illinois, Arkansas, and Georgia, that the 1982 Illinois elections resulted in 62 indictments and 58 convictions for election fraud, involving not only campaign workers, but precinct captains and election officials. In Chicago alone, a grand jury found that 100,000 fraudulent votes had been cast. But Chicago had already been a central hub of Democrat election theft for decades, most infamously exemplified by the 1960 presidential election, in which Robert Dallek, a biographer of both John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon, concluded that Democrats, quote, probably stole Illinois from Nixon. In 2020, Democrat politicians infamously changed voter laws throughout the United States to increase absentee ballots and insecure ballot drop boxes, in some cases, such as Pennsylvania, in violation of the state constitution. Despite claims of perfectly secure elections, hundreds of Democrats over American history have been convicted over election fraud, and those convictions represent only a small percentage of cases, which represent only a small percentage of allegations of voter fraud widely acknowledged by historians and really by anyone with eyes. In Los Angeles, we see the same old story. A Republican defeated by the last-minute count of absentee ballots, cast without any solid chain of custody, often in ballot drop boxes without any election security. Those circumstances might all be perfectly legal, at least in a Democrat stronghold such as Gomorrah by the Sea. But we're still left with a simple question. If Democrats want us to believe there isn't any voter fraud, why do they keep expanding the use of all the same tricks they've used to steal elections for the past 200 years? The more you knows.
Hey guys, welcome to the program. This episode is just about what's on your mind. Let's talk about it. Hey, do me a favor, will you please? Raise your finger and share this program, whether it's Rumble or like or follow or thumbs up or Instagram, YouTube, wherever you're watching. Make sure you click that follow or subscribe so you get notifications when I do special programs, etc. And anyway, by the way, also, you know, the chat for any one program a lot of times starts even an hour or more before the program, and there is always some interesting dialogue. Every time there's interesting dialogue. Here's one for you. Pop quiz. You're hearing a lot of talk online if you listen to fraudcasters talking about Jewish influence of President Trump and all the Jews in his cabinet. Let's go back in time. Who had the most Jews in their cabinet positions? Starting with, we'll go, Clinton or Obama or, Biden or President Trump. Who had the most Jews? Do you know? I know what the fraudcasters tell you, right? Some are saying, yeah, Trump had the most Jews. That's what you're hearing. But is it true? Do you actually believe that President Trump has the most Jews ever in his key senior positions, administration, cabinet members? Yeah, you might think it, but just so you know, it's not true. Those are not the numbers. Biden comes in at 27%. They don't repeat that one. Clinton next comes in at 20%. Obama came in at 8%. Trump comes in at 5%. That's why you can see a lot of this anti-Semitic stuff coming up. It's all by design, and people, right? People are believing too much rhetoric from fraudcasters that are trying to get clicks. What we try to do here on the program is just give you the facts, let you decide for yourself what's going on. So when I do a program like this, it's what's on your mind, it's let's talk. You ask your questions. It's easiest for me to see the questions pop up in my system, Facebook, X, and Rumble. Those are the easiest for me to get to quickest. But you ask your question. Let's just talk about what's going on. Maybe that video saw. Maybe you want to talk about election integrity. Maybe you want to talk about, a marathon you watched or whatever the case may be. You decide. By the way, today's program's brought to you by the fine folks at Goldco. Here's what I'm asking you to do. I'm just asking you to go to jovanlovesgold.com. It's that simple. I want you to request your free gold and silver kit today, because now is the time to protect your money from gold and silver. And I'm telling you, the digital dollar's coming. It's going to be forced upon us. There is no way around it. So protect yourself. I hope many of you appreciated the final episode in the 6-part series on the three-toed dragon. Communist China's secret war to end American AI and data centers. And that's probably one of the bigger frauds going on right now with the fraudcasters talking about how data centers are bad. It's killing the environment, the fish, and the cows are losing weight, and the chickens aren't laying eggs. We're at war, and you have to understand we're at war. And by the way, what you're seeing in LA is going to be repeated in the midterms. That's why Kamala ended election night during the real election with 68 million votes. And now she's well over 75 million. They want you to believe she was better than both Obama terms and Hillary. It's because we're under attack. And that's the crap, folks. Share this program. We'll get started in about 2 minutes. Share it. Let's get started.
The upcoming 2026 midterms could be a bloodbath for Republicans? How? Consider this. On Election Day 2008, Barack Obama received 69 million votes. In his second term, he racked up 65 million votes, and he was considered the Democrat rock star president. Then Hillary ran against Donald Trump. She received the same 65 million votes. But come 2020, Joe Biden supposedly received 81 million votes. Was he really more popular than Obama or Hillary? Of course not. But that is not the half of it. In the 2024 election, Kamala Harris received 68 million votes. But did you know that now it's almost 2 years after that election, and somehow Kamala Harris has been elevated to over 75 million votes? How does a candidate get 8 million more votes after the election? Is this an attempt to validate the fraudulent 81 million vote fantasy from 2020? You bet. One thing stands between chaos and correcting history, and that is the historic 2020 full forensic archive of Maricopa County, Arizona. The single most detailed full audit of a presidential election in American history, audited over 2 million ballots, generated over 20,895,000 individual proof files. This took 58 billion forensic measurements, resulting in over 2 trillion individual base computations. This evidence must be kept for any and all future court cases, Supreme Court cases, and preserved for all time, eventually at the Trump Presidential Library. That is why we need you. You, the people, made this history happen, and now you, the people, can have a hand in making sure this evidence is saved for future generations. Please donate. Please help us. Donate now to continue to preserve in a chain of custody state of the only legal court-ready evidence of the 2020 election disaster, the 2.1 million physical ballots, the single largest forensic audit of a presidential election in American history. Please donate now and preserve history.
Warning. The following program has been rated Dilligaff and is intended for open-minded audiences. If the truth offends you, or if you are allergic to focused intensity, intellectual athleticism, or the occasional F-bomb or even irreverent humor, please switch off now. If your delicate sensibilities need to be worried about or addressed, might we recommend the Underwater Basket Weaving channel to you? Otherwise, sit back, enjoy the wisdom, insight, and wicked sense of humor.
Cut the crap. How many times a day do you want to say that to politicians? The elite, the loony liberals, the fake news media, and the gender-confused, emotional socialist snowflake crowd. Cut the crap is your secret weapon for fighting for our freedoms and our great republic. It all begins with a massive mental enema, freeing you from the toxic news and politically correct views, which constipate your consciousness with stinking thinking. Your host, Jovan Hutton Pulitzer, he's known for calling out politicians and telling them to cut the crap. You've seen him on virtually every television network and listened to him on Coast to Coast Radio. And now he's here to help you learn to fight for America. Culture, race, and American politics. They all have one thing in common. They all need to cut the crap. Now, here's your host, Jovan Hutton Pulitzer.
Okay, folks, this is where you get to share what's on your mind. You ask me the things that you're wondering about, and I'll answer you. Here's one I inadvertently missed. Sorry I didn't get to it sooner. The question S2 asks, honest questions, what will data centers be using and storing? Are they storing data from US via apps, flock cameras, tracking to tax us by miles driven, as proposed in California social credit score? Interesting question. I think people misunderstand the true use of data centers. Don't confuse data storage with computing data. There's data storage and there's computing data. It's not that these centers are installing incredible banks of long-term memory. These data centers primarily are storing the ability to compute. Now, let me explain to you how this works. And I'll give it to you in terms of the full forensic audit in Arizona and what it took to do. When you're running or crunching numbers, looking at a spreadsheet, whatever the case may be, you typically think of it as you're sitting on a computer and you're letting the computer run and extrapolate the information. That is a single computer. The next level up on that would be to do it on some sort of workstation. That means a little more robust computer so that you can do the data. Now, that particular machine, if you were using a little higher end network terminal, a higher end NT machine, Linux, whatever the case may be, Unix box, you might be talking about a $10,000 computer. Now, in the past, the only way to get more computing power was to go, you've got your $10,000 box you're doing it on, but it can only handle so much information and process so long. That's the little pinwheel, when something takes to resolve. Well, your other thing you could do was you could set in a second machine and you can kind of link them together. And now it's technically doing it twice as fast, twice the capacity. That's one level. The next level in computing is about what's called core processors. So when you look at a Intel chip that used to be a Core 4, that basically meant it could run 4 simultaneous computing strings, I'm simplifying, at a time. And then you get up to Core 6, Core 10, Core 20. It could run multiple streams. In computing, strings is what it's called. However, it's still limited by their box. That's the world of physical computing. That takes a lot of expense, right? It's very expensive to buy. It's very expensive even if you were just going to rent them. Yes, you could, in fact, rent them. They'll bring in the machines. You set them all up. You get them all going. You use them for a big project. Then you're done, but very inefficient. What happens in the world of, and we'll just call it virtual reality, meaning where it all got disconnected from the desktop, you can now go into, and I'll just use it for easy terms, the cloud. You go in and you say, this is the computer I would want to run this on. And you specify everything. This much memory, this much RAM, this much processing power, this many strings, this much data you need for each one in drives. But that's a virtual machine, right? It's still one machine, but you're basically borrowing their computing power to do it. So you had the physical world of a computer, and then you have the virtual world of a computer. However, for something like the Arizona audit, which took a tremendous amount of power, what we did is we created that virtual machine in that moment of time, and then we provisioned 2,000 of them in a row. 2,000 of them in a row. Basically, what was a value of a $10,000 machine, we said we need 2,000 of them. And so what happens in this big resource power, the system, technically in the cloud, a data center, provisions and allots to us 2,000 clones of these very high-end machines. And then when we run our programs, our analytics, let's say looking for the fold, 2,000 machines run that all at the same time. Each of them, we'll just call it running 10 strings. I'm just being simple. So you got, literally 20,000 strings processing at a singular moment in time. This is how you do it really fast, really big, and you get to it because you just can't manage it on physical machines. Now, that was so 6 years ago, 5 years ago. Now it's night and day different. If we literally wanted to provision 1 million of those machines in line, we could. And that's the difference between being able to run something in months or weeks or even days and seconds. It's called virtual machines. So that's probably the best way to think about data centers per se. Can they store things? They've always been able to store things. They have laws that says they store things. You said, well, will they do data on your app? Everything you do on your app, by law in the United States of America, since you've had that app, let's say you were a Facebooker way back when it was called the Facebook, it had to be stored by law. So it's not anything new, etc. It's just the way it is. And so this is not capacity to store things. It is capacities to do things. Think of it as if you were sitting at your desktop and you were sitting there and you wanted to find everything there was on growing okra. I just picked it out my Wahoo. But there are millions of articles, millions of blogs, millions of research papers. Your one choice in the past would be first you'd have to find that information. And you're only as good as where you know to look. Second, if you use the search engine to do it, it's only as good as the search engine is able to see it, which means it's only as good as the webmaster maximized the data on that remote computer that a search engine could pick it up and a search engine could deliver it to you. That's how it used to be. But could you find all 1 million references? Probably not. And so your work would be limited just by sheer volume of numbers. In the new world of data centers and artificial intelligence, it has no regard as to where it resides. It has, as long as it's connected to the net and open, it has no regards to whether the webmaster was efficient or not. It has no regards to whether it was published 50 years ago or 5 minutes ago. It is able to see it all at once, literally in nanoseconds, because it releases its brain, sends out all these digital agents, finds everything, and brings back all of the information that it can find on a topic. That's how it works. So people that are doing the alarmist, they're going to see everything, they're going to track everything. Folks, by the way, have you ever looked at a website and you were surfing on the net, and let's say you were looking for beaver goo, and all of a sudden the next day when you're surfing, not even do it, you happen to see an advertisement on the side that actually says the best beaver goo site in the world, and you're going, wow, I just searched that the other day and here's an ad. What a coinkydink. No, it sees everything. It watches everything. It knows everything. It's already happening, folks. You can't cloak yourself. The only thing you can do is neuter your devices, not to report and not to store. And that's on you, not the system. That's on you. Otherwise, you're connected to the panopticon, which I've done a lot of training on. And so in its sense of nefarious things, anything can be used nefariously. Anything. But is it designed for that use? No, it's designed for massive computing. And now you know how it all works. It's about being able to compute and see it. For myself in the world, when it comes to patents, my particular expertise of my art that I've practiced for 37 years has been able to, I can see the trends I can see where things are headed as a society, and I can see where the gaps are in the system. Therefore, using that information, I invent and create for the future. My job is to see, 10 years ahead. That's why you create it now, and it becomes valuable here. Now, in many ways, that kind of replaces what I do, except what I'm able to do now is I'm able to search even more, search even faster, find the real reports I need, so for me, it actually accelerates my ability to innovate and create, and then to solve problems, because I can take that data, find more data, and I can be better at what I am. Now, where does this head generationally? In my lifetime, I've published in excess of 7 million words. By the way, for all you guys waiting for the gold information for your claim and stuff, I'm working on it. I just had to finish these last 2 books really fast, had to get it out there. Sorry for the delay. This thing about data centers and AI is so much of a fight. I kind of had to set some aside to finish up that book. You will get it. Now, in my life, you have 1 million plus citations on my body of work. Even something like LinkedIn, where you input your patents or whatever, or publications, it can't even hold all of the information regarding my work in my life. People talk about, I have, 12 peer-reviewed articles. There are in excess of 10,000 individual peer-review versions of my work out there. I couldn't store those on any one website. But what you can do in this new world for someone like me, I could take 5,500 hours of programming, right? 5,500 hours. Let's see, what is that? Hang on one second. I could take, for me, broadcasting just in this chair, right? Just in this chair, talking about the things I do when it comes to election and stuff. If it was to be set end on end, I would have been broadcasting 229 days and 4 hours straight without ever taking a break. What AI can do is I can now clone myself. Here's what it means. I can take all 7 million words that I've ever published. I could take all 10,000 some odd peer-reviewed or academic articles relating to me and my work and my innovations. I could take all of the hundreds of patents in the 190 countries, which if you extrapolate them out, it's about 16,000 some odd different versions of patents if you do it by each country, a lot of them doing it in their own native language. I could take every radio program I've done, every interview I've ever done, and I could feed it into AI. And AI would learn me. AI would be able to see how I view the world. It would be able to understand by reading my patents and reading my work how I think. But it takes importing your whole body of work into it, and it can be done. Now, how would this be used to me? And by the way, I'm in the process of doing this. Is that means while I focus on writing my next book, this system over here can be going, what's going to be the next greatest thing to hit in 4 years that I should patent that I'm not thinking about? And it will find it and it will tell me. That's the future. But it's also the same future where information was captured before, like, you got to do fertilizers on your land, and they suppress the real research they hide by not covering it or not publishing it peer-reviewed that really says, no, chemicals are killing our land. Now, it can't block anything anymore. It can see anything and everything. So in the new information age and revolution, you're going to find all the stuff they've been hiding from us. They can't hide anymore. And it's going to lead to great changes. And so that's why I'm saying be very careful of the fear mongering that goes on, because most of the fear mongering's been done by fraudcasters that are being fed a message and they're going for clips. It's some of the greatest times we've ever lived in our life, right? And just like anything else, it can be used for good or for bad. You can feed yourself with a rifle. You can do evil with a rifle. It again always goes back to the individual person, their intent, and their own internal programming. So I hope that helps answer that. Super Buff, by the way, thank you so very much as well. Before S2, thank you for that generous donation. And thank you, Super Buff. You say, why in the hell doesn't Trump and other lawmakers on our side push and hammer the Arizona audit in front of reporters? Like certified it before all ballots in, etc. So many opportunities are wasted for years. You're right. And I'm looking for glasses cleaner, but I don't have any. What you saw was, and I'm going to tell you how this works. You saw the system gear up election denial shaming. There are no lawmakers that want to be shamed or embarrassed. None. So when the system did what they did regarding the 2020 election, it was a warning shot to lawmakers and stuff. Don't talk about that. The next issue you're dealing with is most lawmakers are rat bastards, and they're just in it for the take. They can't create. They can just puppet. All they can do is be a puppet, do what the system says, and the system will reward them. There's no innovation in lawmakers or anything like that. And there's no out-of-the-box, great, incredible, wonderful thinking. That's not it. The next thing is you have to understand on the left, when it came to everything we discovered with audits or otherwise, the left, even before the election was run, they got a group of, it's called T65, they got a group of attorneys that got ready, and every time a lawyer's name popped up in regard to election audits or integrity, they filed an ethics complaint with the bar against that lawyer, stating that the lawyer was acting in bad faith, leading people down a path. Well, in the law business, you have to immediately deal with that. Now, there's only two ways to deal with it. You fight it or you retract it. But you got 30 days to do it. Okay? You got 30 days to do it. If you don't do it in that 30 days, it stays on your record as a blemish on your rating in the bar. So that's how they conned all the attorneys to handle nothing in elections. Now, on the right side, the right did the same. The right came out and said it was super coded QFS blockchain ballots tracking. We know it all. The military's in charge, yada, yada, yada. Infiltrated an Antifa call. I heard it. Made all these claims with no truth. They were absolute bullshit. They got people to include it in their lawsuits. That helped every single lawsuit get disqualified, like saying it's fraud versus maladministration, which is how you have to do it. And what that did is that discredited the right by the right. That warfare is so significant that it shuts everybody down. Also, you can't mention it. You can't mention what you're using until you get to court. You can't mention out in public who you're working with until it gets to court. That's the only defense that is left, just to keep it quiet. Because the right and the left worked to discredit it. And so Mike Lind, even this morning, I was looking, somebody posted something that was Mark Cook. Well, he didn't do an audit. He didn't turn in a report. He turned in a report late. No, I'm an auditor. I get to audit continually, and I'm still in audit. But see, ignorant people don't know that. But that's not what he's paid to do. It's to discredit. Say stuff like Dr. Frank, well, I peer reviewed it and it didn't pass peer review. He didn't peer review it. It's why he won't talk about it on the air. If he had a peer review, he'd be able to see it. And he came out saying he peer reviewed it even before we had the final programs and format done for the Arizona audit done. That was all set up in advance. It's the way it works. And so there is absolutely no need to state it in advance. You hear President Trump, you hear people constantly, it was Serbia, it was Venezuela, although it's died down. It was Serbia, it was Venezuela, all this. President Trump stayed on the road. It's voter rolls, it's mail-in ballots. And that's what he talks about. And he talks about the facts. Now you watched it in California. You see that it is absolutely the mail-in ballots and absolutely the voter rolls and has not a freaking thing to do with the machines. Very funny. I got a Colorado question coming up next, but very funny. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I'm going over final edits for the three-toed dragon, making sure everything's there, doing a final proof of a proof, which is a pain in the ass, and the art people and the insertions and all that. And I see on X that there is a Tina Peters marathon. I'm going awesome. I love Tina Peters. I hate what the system did to her. She did not need to go to jail. But I have my own opinion of exactly what happened and why the system manufactured to make it happen that way. And so I tune in. I'm watching this, and at that time, a friend of mine, Ann Vanderstill's on, and I'm watching two other people I've never really heard of. They're waiting for Tina to come on, and the conversation is about the following. The Jewish mafia, the European Jews, how they created money lending from one guy, which I asked him, come on, we'll talk about this, Khazarian Mafia or whatever. The other guy's talking, thank God that President Trump and the military's been in charge all this time. He's a radio guy. And I'm listening to all this Q bullshit. And I think to myself, holy shit. This is supposed to be about Tina, for Tina, to raise money for Tina. Well, about every 40 minutes, they would mention something. But it was really to spew all over again. It's the Jew and the Q bullshit. It was just fucking disgusting. But then I got to thinking about it because I feel bad for Tina. And I was reminding them in chat, guys, come on. This is about Tina. Tina, what are you doing with Q bullshit? Well, it was like a 6 or 7 hour marathon. And they kept on doing it and kept on doing it. Then they bring on, well, my friend Joel Altman did this stuff. And I'm just watching this cast of characters parade through. And then I kind of think about this. See, Tina has been tempered by fire by what she went through, which basically means Tina has a great story that people want to hear. Can you agree? Tina did come on and she talked about something very meaningful, that she was able to counsel and mentor other women in jail about knowing their rights and how long they could be thrown into solitary confinement and how the guards would always threaten them with bullshit. And Tina earned the respect, started taking up for these ladies. And I'm going, wow, what a great use of Tina's talent to counsel women in prison and be an advocate to fixing our antagonistic bullying prison system. At the same time, she's a great advocate for elections, that elections must be honest, true, and transparent. Do you make her election czar because she went to prison? No, I think that'd be absolute stupid. She made the wrong decisions in the information to trust, and it put her in prison. She's not in prison because she did her job. But then I realized that the very people that helped Tina find her way to prison all this time in the name of raising money for Tina, and now they're saying they're going to raise a couple of $1 million for Tina so Tina can survive, which I hope happens. Tina deserves it, right? But the very same people that perpetrated a lot of those cons, like the Antifa call and all this other stuff, the issue wasn't whether there was an Antifa call or not. That wasn't even the lawsuit. The lawsuit that went to court was defamation of Coomer and what Mike Lindell said, and he has to prove his case. It wasn't whether a call happened or not. Hell, they have calls every day to organize. It was about what was said on that call, who was on that call, and did they say, don't worry, we're fucking taking care of Trump. But see, the system bends it. And then I realized all these people that, in my personal opinion, got Tina in prison are now her champions. Let's raise money for her. Let's do this and do this. And I personally think that's cover. It's cover for them so they look like good guys, not the bad imbeciles they are. But more importantly, see, Tina is a highly valuable asset right now. Here's what dawned on me. The system, when they released her, was very, very worried about Tina coming back out and becoming a champion voice for election integrity. Can you see that? Because people will listen. They'll stop and listen to this beautiful, smart woman who has been abused by the system. Can we agree on that? Yes. But what was the entry back into the marketplace? They put together a telethon connecting her to all of the Q bullshit. Trump was really president then. It was a sting operation. The military's been in charge the whole time. And then I realized, holy shit. I get it. Under the guise of helping Tina, who needs help, the same people that helped get her in prison have brought her back out and have now packaged her with something even worse, the Q movement. And the president was in charge the whole time. And this and that. Do you see how that discredits Tina? Because now, what will the story be? Instead of Tina coming out, I'm going to do good work on transparency and honesty, the same handlers got her back and anchored her in 7 hours of Q bullshit. It's the Jews. President Trump was really president then. He was running it behind the scenes. They set it up. They had everything. The military, that's what they did. And mark my words, going forward, that is the actual appearances and talk that the system on the bad side is going to reference, because they have all these touch points with all these people selling the same stuff. And so I say that because that's the con. And so going back to your question, there's a liability with speaking facts. I'll give you an example. There's always a lie. I never really mention when I have certain guests on in advance. You know why I don't do that anymore? Because if I was to promote it, all of those bad actors start messaging that person, basically tell them, you can't go on Jovan's program, you can't do this. And they have a whole campaign to make sure that person doesn't appear with me. That's why you don't do it in advance. And that's why you don't talk about a lot of the things that are going on in fights, because you're actually training the system to try to discredit you before you do it. So like President Trump is doing, he just has to put it out there. Here it is. Here it goes. But the bullshit abounds. But you can see with your own eyes, California repeated Maricopa. And you're seeing it with your own eyes. And these machines aren't still running. They're counting mail-in ballots. You see it. It's always been people, paper, and programs. Here's the one from Colorado. Goboto-san. Jovan, I'm auditing a county in Colorado for the 2024 election. I have the complete mailing list the county sent to active voters. We are auditing that right now. What would you look for? First, I would ask, right? Here's what I would ask. Here's how I would personally do it. If you have the list from the county in Colorado that they say is the mailing list that they sent ballots to, you need a few more pieces of information. The first information you need from the county is who printed your ballots. They're going to tell you their ballot printer. Let's say it's Runback. Then you say, we need to see the invoicing for Runback for the ballots they printed for you. Now, at its highest level, what you're doing is, how many did they print? How many did they say come in? You're looking, you got to understand the tolerances. So that's the first thing you ask. How many did they print? How many came in? The next thing you ask for is the following. You ask for the duns. And this is what the duns are. All of the ballot packets. It's not a ballot coming back. It's a ballot packet coming back. How many of the ballots that you mailed came back? No such person, no such number, no such address, unknown or deceased. Those inherently get returned by the Postal Service. You need to ask, how many of those were there? The next thing you ask is, where are those returned ballots? The next thing you ask is, are they secured? Then the next piece of information you need is, okay, the balloteer, the ballot printer, is the one that manages your payment account. So you want to see how many ballots did usually the printer is the mailer. If they're separate, just ask the same thing from the other company. How many ballot packets did you mail? Get that number. Then you ask them, what was the price per ballot packet mail? You get the price number. Now, let's say in a county, they said we mailed 10,000 ballots. Well, that 10,000 should match exactly what they printed. There should only be 10,000. There shouldn't be, we printed 13, but we only mailed 10. That should not occur. You're talking specifically mail-in ballots. Okay? So that's the first thing. The next thing that you do is, once you have the number that they paid per ballot, you do simple math. You ask them, okay, how much did you pay per ballot, and how much was the remittance? So in other words, the ballot printer gets money from the county and state remit it, the ballot printer in that transaction on the county's account pays for those ballots to be mailed. You should be able to take that bulk number divided by the cost of each ballot packing mailed. And that should be exactly what they said mailed, exactly what they said printed. Now, if in fact they said they mailed 10,000 and they charged for 10,000 mailings, but you actually find out they didn't, which is a misuse of money, that's a federal and state crime. If you find out they printed 13,000, they said they mailed 10, but the post office showed they only really mailed 8, it's a crime. So what you have to do is, that's your first level of auditing. That is auditing of the procedures that the election officials have control of. This is where you search for maladministration, mismanagement. If you're not asking for that information, you're not really doing an audit. You're doing an inspection. Now, if you have now that mailing list, and you know which ones and how many were returned, I would ask, which addresses came back undeliverable? The very first thing you want to do is, you want to take, if you can get it, you want to take all of those ballot packets that came back undeliverable, and you immediately want to check it against the vote record. I think it's your 55. It's either a 45 or a 55 is the code for it. Did they vote? You want to find out, well, we got your ballot back undeliverable, but it shows you voted. Well, that's your first indication that on that spec, something's wrong. Then what do? You look at how that person, quote unquote, voted. It only says if they voted in methodology. It doesn't say who they voted for. You look at the methodology, and it's either an EV or a P for provisional or an ED for election day. That's all they are. Well, if it says EV and you've got a ballot returned, now you have an audit trail. Wait a minute, we got your ballot returned, but it says you early voted. Well, the only way they can early vote without that ballot, which is the full color mailed ballot folded, right? Then the next level of it is they had to get a replacement ballot, which will be in black and white, and they'll have to have a record of that. And so if you have a record of replacement, it's good. If you don't have a record of replacement, somebody used that voting file. Now, what do you do with that file? When you run an address and it's an apartment complex and it doesn't have an apartment number on it, do not make the Lindell suffocation trick. Oh, that's fraud. It is not fraud. It's a boo-boo in the system. So the very first thing you do, with no regard to the voter at all, no regard to the voter, is you run that database against live addresses. And what you have to do is you have to do a classification sort. How many are homes, actual homes on the tax roll? How many of these are rental properties? How many of these are hotels? How many of these are apartment buildings? How many of these are rec centers? How many of them the addresses don't appear? This is how you start putting them into bins so you know what they are. Now, this is where the painstaking work comes in, and so few people actually do it because they think it's just run a database and put a spreadsheet and you think you're doing something. No, you're not doing anything. The very first thing you start doing with them is you look at the home addresses and you start verifying there's a home there. I can't tell you how many times we looked at a home address. You go to the real estate, Zillow, anything like that, right? Any real estate site or Google Earth, you put in the address, you look for it, and you find out, well, there's a home there. It's a trailer, but it's been burnt out. It's burned. You look at the dates because you can go back 10 years in Google Earth and you find out this fucking thing's been burned up for 10 years. That's a major red flag. So you have to class them by categories first to do that. Then you have to literally check the residents against occupancy records. We found trailers that we found a single wide 2-bedroom trailer with 27 voters. Come on. We found empty fields with no mailboxes. Empty fields with no mailboxes, 2,000 voters. You have to track these things literally down to it. But just to say it's a wrong address, so that's fraud, bullshit. That is not fraud. It's maladministration. Now, once you track all of these things down and you're taking a look at it, the next thing that people miss is go to your county courthouse for your county and get the jury rejection list based on they were not legal residents. Get the jury list of the people that got rejected because they are not legal American citizens. It's the easiest way to get it. Run that list against who they mailed ballots to. You're going to quickly identify illegals that are on the voter rolls. Okay? Now, depending upon where you got this list, and I'm just going to play like you got it from the county. You want to try to source a secondary source. Maybe somebody got one from the county the year before. Maybe somebody got one from the county 2 years before. You want to run the list they mailed against what they said it was, let's call it a year ago. You're going to see a difference. It's going to happen. But the difference should be everybody that died, everybody that got removed, and all new voters that got put on. You should be able to track every one of them. This person moved away, so they were removed. This person changed district and went off the list, so they were removed. This person died, so they were removed. This person put on because they're a new register. Yes, it's a lot of work. You look at it, those numbers should match. What got removed should have a valid reason. What got added should be a valid voter. I have never found one that ever matched. And they can't explain where they came from. And they can't explain how they got there. Well, that's how you show that the list is mismanaged. Period. If in fact you are in a state that's managed by the Electronic Registration Information Center, the ERIC Center, you would get them to petition ERIC for their county and get the ERIC list and see if the ERIC list matches the county list, matches the aforementioned list. See, I think the ERIC list is the good one. And they use that anytime somebody's asking questions, snooping around, because you're not going to find the bad ones. But I think a lot of the ballot printers are given bad lists. Doesn't mean the ballot printer's bad. It means somebody in the county is using an old list because they can print more ballots. What you have to do is you have to find these checks and measures back and forth. Period. You got to find every one of them. It's a complicated process. You want to physically look at every home. If you're finding empty lots, if you're finding 7-Elevens and gas stations, I've seen Mexican restaurants with 83 voters on them. A Mexican restaurant with 83 voters on them. I've seen churches with 30,000 voters using the church's address. All of that administratively is not allowed. Is it fraud? No. If you say fraud, you're screwed. So if you want to get suffocated by the pillow called Mike Lindell, say fraud all fucking day long. What it really is maladministration. And what your rights are as a citizen is to bring maladministration forward. You have to show you did not administer this election properly, or you are not administering your elections in the manner they're supposed to be kept up. That's the only case you have. As you do this, if it is a pattern, it's a pattern. That's what leads it to malfeasance. But if you get suffocated by the pillow saying it's fraud, it's over. And if you say the machine, it's over. The machine doesn't do this. Never has, never will. That's just as fucking ignorant as the dim saying guns kill people. No, people with bad programming kill people. But yet, as a conservative, you do the same thing. It's the machines. It is not the machines. You have to approach it just like you're doing a corporate audit, and you have to break these things down. Now, when you search these addresses and you find out it's a burnt out trailer, you got to get the real estate information, you get the tax county information, you get that Google Earth information, and then you or someone in your group, in your ass, in a car, go and get photos and record it in real time. That is a proof file. Nothing else is a proof file. If you just submit it to them, saying this address is bad, and you give them a spreadsheet, which is a true the vote con, here's a spreadsheet, take them off, you're giving the county an excuse. The county says, well, we have to investigate it. No, here's how you do it. You physically do all of this. You do a legal certified jurat for the entire file. You pass it to a second person in your group, and you demand they duplicate every one of your steps. And they do a legal jurat, certified notary. Then you ask a third person to take your file, compare it to the other person's files, and see if there's any discrepancies. There shouldn't be. And they do a legal jurat. Now, why are you doing that? Because that's when you can appear before a judge and say, Judge, here's what we did. Here's the information. My work has been checked 2 times over. Here are the jurats. Here it is. And a judge can look at it, can physically look at it, and the judge can make a ruling right then and there. But if you want to believe the other con of send in spreadsheets, well, this is fraud because there's not an apartment number. You got suffocated by the pillow. All a con. If you're willing to go to that extent, which is exactly the conversation I had with President Trump of how we do this, you can clean the rolls and you can get it done, and you're 100% within your legal standing to do it. You want to go a step further? Put on a body recording camera, go knock on the door, tell them I'm an independent researcher. I'm just trying to verify this residence. I see that 27 people are supposedly live at this residence. May I read these names to you? You'll ask them, do you live here? And they'll go, yeah. And go, can I read these names to you? We're just trying to clean up the county data. Can I read these names to you? How long you been here? Oh, we've lived here 15 years. Okay, we'll read these names. You read the name to them. Your camera's recording, right? You've told them. They're going, no, never heard of that person. Nope, never heard of that person. Yeah, they moved away 20 years ago. You've got all of that on camera. You get them to sign a release that they've given testament. So you could tell them, you're going to clean them up from the voter rolls. Then you turn around, you've got their video affidavit, which is just as good in court. You transcribe the video, you transcribe the affidavit, you attach the video, and that's part of your evidence file. If you don't go to that extent, you're wasting your fucking time. And yes, the system will waste your time. And if you're doing these canvas polling parties where they ask you for a non-disclose, you can't talk about what you found, that's a con. They'll get you to do the work. So everybody says, I'm polling and I'm polling and I'm polling and I'm polling. And you never see any of these canvas reports. You ever wonder why you never saw any canvas reports? The only one you saw was Liz Harris, which did it right. There were no NDAs. When they found out people were knowing it, all these things pop up in the canvas. You got to sign in, and none of it went anywhere. They bound you to a legal agreement to say you couldn't talk about it. And then they did nothing with it. That's how it all works. That's what you should be looking for. And yes, it's a monumental task. And you probably never heard it detailed in that much. Saint says, Lara Logan recently came out and pushed the Serbia 72 countries overturn. The same thing with Pete Santilli. Pete is doing the trust me, bro. I have insiders. I'm part of the investigation. Pete Santilli, if you take his name in an anagram, it's pestilence. Pestilence. I've heard Pete Santilli say he's a coder, say he's a certified auditor, say he's an accountant. Pete will say anything. I wouldn't piss on Pete if he is on fire. Lara Logan, I like Lara. I know Lara, but Lara only talks about people. She only talks about specific things that are approved to talk about. But Pete will tell you no matter what it is, he's part of the investigation. So let's trust Pete, a guy who was federally indicted, and how he got out from under the indicted, as the way I understand it, the rumor mill goes that he made a deal with the FBI. Let me ask you a question. Why would you believe any podcaster? I should be able to show, here it is, here's how it happened, here's the numbers, here it is, here's this number of ballots, how it is. That is the burden of proof. Let me ask you a question. Why would you believe any podcaster? Why would you believe a kid that used to work in Taco Bell? Or why would you believe somebody who, like Stu Peters, who wanted to become the most famous white rapper in the world? Why would you believe that? They have no educational background to do it. They have no academic background to do it. And they don't really do it. Now, Pete needs you to tune in because I'm on the inside, I'm an inside, I'm on the inside, I'm an inside. That's his stick. At one time, I liked Pete until I really found out what Pete was about. That's just the way it goes. That's a fraudcaster in my book. right? None of these people will address this head on. And so let me ask you a question. Lara Logan was a journalist inside the system. Great credibility. What happened to her, she's lucky to be alive, right? But Lara Logan is one person, I've been around quite a bit, who absolutely refuses to talk about the absolute facts of the Arizona audit. But she will talk about the things that the system tends to put out there that are non-enforceable. So let's just say this out, that Serbia, 72 countries overturned. Okay, what does that have to do with the United States? Think about, we're in 2026. Think about how much you were told 30 white hats made sure President Trump won. They stopped all the information on the servers for the bad votes. Every time they saw a vote swapped, they stopped it. Now, let me ask you a question. In order for them to see all the votes, you have to understand it means they're in system. In order to stop something, it means you have to be able to see it as it happens. Well, let's say you're a white hat and you're seeing Serbia and China, the server, you're seeing them do the manipulation. You're sitting there as a white hat protecting it. What are you doing? You're documenting the crime. You're screen capturing it. You're tracking everything. You let it happen because it has to occur. You track it back to the source computer. Let me ask you a question. Here we are 2 years later. Have you seen any of that? It'd be the crime of the century. Have you seen any of that? You've heard a lot of talk about it. Can you not put together that the person that Mike Lindell lied about the PCAPs, said he never had them? Dennis Montgomery couldn't testify because he's a protected witness. Same for Conan Haynes. He was a protected witness. Oh, it's Serbia. It's this. It's a protected witness whistleblower. How can you not see it's the same tactic over and over and over and over? I'll tell you why. Because you so want to believe that somebody's got this. You so want to believe the United States and our elections are not out of control. Well, see, the only way the system works and the only way the system gets fixed is absolute proof. When you watch the video that I played earlier in the broadcast, when you saw 62 indictments, 58 convictions, that was all fucking with the paper down to the people. Absolute proof. That's what did it. Nothing else. No machines. But that's not what the system wants you to talk about. And so even though I have professional respect for Lara Logan, hate what she's been through, she's never covered my stuff. Because when I say, here's the ballot before, here's the ballot after, here's the change, don't cover that. But we'll tell you it was a Serbian operation in 72 countries. For me, my standard's different. For me. But one thing I found in all of this is I have a much higher standard than most people do. I've been told, I've already been told countless times, keep talking about this, we'll ruin you. I'll just say this. I'll just do this. I'll just say this. We've played this game for a long time. We know exactly how it works. So when somebody says, yeah, and he sent 24 books and we couldn't load through it, well, you kind of got a problem when we never sent 24 books because it was never in a book. It was on a data fob. It kind of tells you people doesn't look. people have their own agendas. Unfortunately, this space has spawned a cottage industry, right? And the cottage industry is people telling you they're going to fix it, and they all have nonprofits. We're going to fix it. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're fighting for you. Nobody looks under the radar. You can ask Rock, how much is Lindell Defense Fund raised? I'm going to double check my numbers. Hang on one second. So my question was, how much money has the Lindell Defense Fund raised? Okay. The last number I got, I think the number reported in their documents, because they're a 504, which is a version of a 50C3 has a classification called a 504. Okay. Let me see if I can get them all. But you got millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that have been donated to these things. I get a little confused because I don't understand it when people says I put 40 million or whatever into it, right? Here it is. In 2001, the Form 990 in 2001, you gave Mike $2,835,842. In 2022, you gave Mike $3,417,092. In 2023, you gave Mike $6,554,880. In 2024, you gave Mike $5,511,079. So that's in total with some other fund, and these are reported on 990s, $452,256. Yet I told you I was watching Tina Peters' thing the other day, and she's got legal bills. Well, I thought Mike was taking care of legal bills, or Patrick was taking care of legal bills. Was that only to a point? Now she's out and she's going to have more? Well, there was $18 million raised. So let me ask you a question. Is that Mike's money or is that your money? So when they say, I gave 40 million, did they really? This is where I have a disconnect, kind of the disconnect I had with the marathon that ran yesterday. Got to pay her defense fund or whatever. Well, $18 million of this supposed defense fund, the Liddell Defense Fund, what did that buy? What did that do? What did it have? Did you know it was $18 million? I didn't, until you got to understand ask the right question, and you ask the right question about the 50C4 designation, and understand it, and you get the real data. That's all I'm saying. In this has become a business. A lot of them. Hold on one second. So my question is, okay, it was $40 million. Well, if people have pitched in almost half of that, was it really that? And I just say nobody's ever going to get the real number. Nobody's ever going to get the real information. And a lot of it's hype. And a lot of it is, look at meism. Look how good I am. Look how Christian I am. Look how this I am. Right? But all of these things have become massive business. There's another one, not going to tell you the name, but they raised $31.3 million. $31.3 million. So do you think having a nonprofit is valuable? We're fighting. We're doing this. It's the Mexicans. It's the machines. It's this. Of course it's valuable. I hear people say, they'll get people all the time, I got to talk about it. Well, you got to start a nonprofit, and that's what you should do. I'm not in the nonprofit business. And that's, I'm not sure it gets anything done. I really don't, because I don't know how you position it. Another one, $15.975 million. $15.9 million. We're election integrity. We're this, we're that, we're this, we're that. $15.9 million. Any one of these could have hand investigated many times over every single voter on the voter rolls and had the proof files. But what did they do? Use thousands of volunteers, and nothing happened. Another one, $8.3 million. And these are, quote unquote, integrity organizations. That's all I'm saying. For me, it doesn't make sense to me. When I see that money, I see the ability to get things done. Not the ability, right? Not the ability to create a nonprofit that just keeps on raising money. I don't see that, right? I don't get it. I don't understand it. We're a pittance in it, right? For all that we've been and done. Another one that hasn't done anything was given $4.8 million. So for me, in all of this, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's a lot of hopium. I think there's misdirection in it. I think there's good people in it. I think there's bad people in it. But here's what I know. It is, in fact, business as usual. And it's just like the legal system, get nothing fixed. It's just like the healthcare system, get nothing fixed. It's just like politicians, get nothing fixed. And if you get close to their thing, don't get in my thing, don't ruin my thing, they basically come out and say, well, I'm going to ruin you. I'm going to say this. And they threaten you all the time. For me, and this is just me personally, you got to have hardcore facts. I didn't enter the audit business. I didn't enter the nonprofit business. We set out to use technology to find a way that could get an answer about what happened. All of these people ignored it, and then the fraudcasters tell you, oh, I didn't do it, didn't do a report, didn't do this, but yet we can show you every single transaction in hardcore ways you've been able to see it and understand it. You can cross-verify it. You can take every report. You can download every one of those, and don't do it on your phone. Did you know you could download those and feed it into AI and get the same results? It'll tell you by batch, by ballot, by date, and everything. But that's a job. My time, personally, and my team's time, it's been wildly punitive to us. Emotionally, physically, reputation, etc. But that's how the system plays. But it's just what we had to do to understand how it's done. And so you can go back to 2020 and we say, here it is, here's how it was done. You could have not believed me this entire time until you now watch California and Los Angeles and you see it. And think about how much bullshit got sold in between. It was the machines. They never did audits. It's con ink. It's fraudcasting. That's it. It's not a good business. It's not a business. It's a business if you want to be a nonprofit. So you set up your nonprofit, your cause for this, your cause for that, your patriot this, you're this American, you're this great this. That's what you do. And you're a money-raising machine, right? A money-raising machine. And that's why these people do groups and people do nonprofits. I got to tell you, I'm not interested in that. Playing politics is a losing game unless you're a politician. Most of these people don't even know that on some of the bigger shows, people pay to get interviewed. Those interviews are bought and paid for by the system. For me, that's not a business model. It's not a business model I could live with, but it's not a business model. For me, I'd rather spend my talents, trying to change the housing market, trying to change energy, trying to change, how we grow foods, and doing something that I can be proud of and that I could be measured by. Would the economic damage to me, my life, my family, and businesses been less if I would have just taken a $10 million bribe and agreed not to do my particular part that I was going to bring to bear? No, and I'm glad I didn't do it. That would be disgusting. I love my country too much. And I just want you to know, I have no answers for anybody else and why they do what they do. I think there are people that lied about what they found or certain things they do, and that lie took on a life of its own, and it became so big that there's no way they can ever, for the life of them, walk it back. I think others, Mike Lindell's a good example, will tell you Coomer went to court and Mike Lindell won. No, he didn't. He got fined heavily. He got found guilty. But yeah, they come out and said he won and was a victory for... No, it wasn't. It was a loss. I don't wish politics on anyone, but I do wish clarity on everybody. Right? I do wish clarity. I do wish, just like we talked about, what would you do with the voter rolls? I do wish that you find your way through it and find the answers. See, it's all about being able to get this fixed. It's not a popularity contest, although it's handled like a popularity contest. It has nothing to do with God. You know what it has to do with? God gave you free will, and what are you going to do with that free will? That's not about God. It's about you. I cannot believe how many people on this Tina thing, it was 75% Q, 25% of how, let me read some scripture, let me quote the Bible, let me tell you what a good Christian I am. For me, that's posing. But that's just me. You don't have to feel that same way. For me, when somebody says, I'm a good Christian, I'll get to the bottom of it, for me, it slams on the brakes. If you have to tell me that, then I understand psychologically you're trying to sell me a package. And I want to know why you have to say that. I also think if you're doing things for righteous reasons and right and ethic, it shows in your work. You don't have to tell people, I'm so godly, let me read this. That's, to me, that's by the way, that's the actual definition of using the Lord's name in vain, right? You're quoting God and quoting scripture to try to make you and your actions look godly. That is literally what it means to use the Lord's name in vain. But I do have to tell you, I came into this naively. And I trusted. And I thought people, once they saw the right thing, would do the right thing. And I learned there is no incentive to do the right thing. And I play my cards close to the vest. You would be amazed at how many people you sing praises of never, ever, 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 ever looked at the evidence and have no desire to. You'd vomit. I play those things very close to my chest because this is a war. For me personally, I trust Donald J. Trump. As a business person, as a technology person, as a business and job builder myself, I understand what he's doing. I understand why he's doing it. You know, they just have an Iran deal. It's not a peace deal. It's a 60-day extension with terms. That's it. And I'm okay with that. Any movement is good. But Iran and Hezbollah and those guys don't want to fix it. Why? Because they make too much money not fixing it. It's a game. It's a game. For me, my hope personally, I don't want to be remembered for election stuff. This is a project. The client happened to be the United States of America. That's my client. I've always told you that from the beginning. Here it is. What you do with it is what you do with it. But it's irrefutable, documented, paper proof. But for me, it was a client, and I'm honored to have done it for my country. I'm honored to have been summoned to meet with President Trump and go over it item by item. One of the greatest moments of my life. But it does not define who I am. It does not define what I am. Now, at the end of the day, if I could choose the things that I would be remembered for, being a great teacher, being a good person, although I'm tough as nails, and doing what's right, and showing human beings that you decide your fate. And if you don't like your lot in life, change your lot in life. If you're not being all you can be, then here you go, be all you can be. There's no logical reason I can sit down and whip out books and whatever. It's just because I'm stupid enough to believe I can do it, because on paper, I'm a fucking welfare baby of a prostitute crackhead who died of AIDS. But that doesn't define me. I don't want to be defined that way. So if I've changed your life by opening your eyes, by teaching you a skill set, by helping you understand these things, then I've lived and had a great life. Do I need massive crowds and cheers? And I've had that, right? I've stood in front of where 45,000 people show up to show little old me speak. It was cool, but did it fulfill me? No. If I could be measured by anything, for me, I want to be measured by, did I help you find a way to do better in life and be everything you could? Did I help you understand the system, that it's all up to us, that we have free will and you got to decide to use it for something good, not just plod along? And can I help set you free from the system? For me going forward, we can fix our energy issues with the United States. We can win this data center AI war. We can set China back on its heels. We can feed all the starving in the world and take care of it. We can solve this housing crisis. You don't have to wait 6 or 7 months to get a home loan approved. It doesn't have to be beyond your reach. And I think when you're 21 years old, you should be able to afford a home the way it used to be. So you should have home ownership anchors, great kids, should be able to take care of yourself in a crisis and not to be dependent upon the system. If I could fix those things, I would have lived a wonderful, incredible life. And that's what I'm working on. Is what's said about me important? No, because they're just words. But I am one person that you can audit me day in, day out, a couple times a day with what I do, how I am, what I say, and what I show you. And I think that's important. And as long as I can sit on this seat and do this and share and teach, that's why I can't do it in 1 minute, 2 minutes, or 3 minutes. And I don't consider this a show. This is our time together. This is our time being family, being friends here. We know all kinds of things about each other. And we explore this truth and crisis that we're going through together. Because one thing I know is I know all of us that's in this family here, we can count on each other. I don't think you have other shows where somebody goes, where's this person? They're missing. What's going on? Well, let's reach out and call them. I don't think there's another show or episode or whatever it does that. So for me, this is about family and friends. My life in the public, being able to romp around publicly and whatever has become a danger to my life. But I'm totally okay with being a hermit as well, right? We know each other's scars. We know each other's hurts. We know each other's pains. We know each other's losses. To me, that is being human. To me, that's being a good friend. And to me, that's being supportive of each other. And if I could pass courage is contagious, that's the message I want to leave, because I'm living proof. It does not matter what you were dealt. You get to decide who you are and how you go through this life and what you leave. And I just want to leave something great. Anyway, I'm telling you, there will never be a book award for conservative writers. There never will. And I've written an ungodly amount of books. But I'm actually telling you, I think the three-toed dragon and this, what you're going to see in this, how it works and how maybe it finally you understand it. I think this might be one of my greatest works, and it would basically be award worthy. And the knowledge base and clarity you will walk away with understanding the dragon and how this works. I have to tell you, I'm incredibly proud for it. Anyway, I appreciate every one of you. Thank you for being with me and cutting the crap. Share this program.
I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV. I know the problem, you've got just one policy. You do the opposite of what the Donald does. Don't know what you believe just because you got that TDS. You've tested positive. There's nothing I can do for chronic low IQ. It's TDS. Open the borders, let Mamdani pick your pocket. Let the boys beat the girls, they got that extra rocket. A theology degree from Starbucks. You declare that America sucks. You got that TDS. You tested positive. There's nothing I can do for chronic low IQ. It's TDS. If you're red, alright, let's get this party started. If you're left, you're blue and probably retarded. Like Rosie, De Niro, Jimmy Kimmel, Kathy Griffin. No kings, no kidding, we don't live in Great Britain. If J6 was the worst thing you've ever seen, Soros, burning Sadie's a mostly peaceful thing. Bring back the cartels, commute their crimes, sack the fact check.
I am your daddy.
You got that TDS. You tested positive. There's nothing I can do for chronic low IQ. It's TDS. No matter what he says, you must be really dumb, 'cause you keep blaming Trump for all your problems.
Side effects of Trump derangement syndrome may include violent behavior, delusions, nightmares, insomnia, irrational hatred, hopelessness, anxiety, depression, blue hair, tantrums, inability to form coherent speech, difficulty maintaining gainful employment, and verbal diarrhea.
There's no cure in sight.
The upcoming 2026 midterms could be a bloodbath for Republicans? How? Consider this. On Election Day 2008, Barack Obama received 69 million votes. In his second term, he racked up 65 million votes, and he was considered the Democrat rock star president. Then Hillary ran against Donald Trump. She received the same 65 million votes. But come 2020, Joe Biden supposedly received 81 million votes. Was he really more popular than Obama or Hillary? Of course not. But that is not the half of it. In the 2024 election, Kamala Harris received 68 million votes. But did you know that now it's almost 2 years after that election, and somehow Kamala Harris has been elevated to over 75 million votes? How does a candidate get 8 million more votes after the election? Is this an attempt to validate the fraudulent 81 million vote fantasy from 2020? You bet. One thing stands between chaos and correcting history, and that is the historic 2020 full forensic archive of Maricopa County, Arizona, the single most detailed full audit of a presidential election in American history, audited over 2 million ballots, generated over 20,895,000 individual proof files. This took 58 billion forensic measurements, resulting in over 2 trillion individual base computations. This evidence must be kept for any and all future court cases, Supreme Court cases, and preserved for all time, eventually at the Trump Presidential Library. That is why we need you. You, the people, made this history happen, and now you, the people, can have a hand in making sure this evidence is saved for future generations. Please donate. Please help us. Donate now to continue to preserve a chain of custody state of the only legal court-ready evidence of the 2020 election disaster. The 2.1 million physical ballots, the single largest forensic audit of a presidential election in American history. Please donate now and preserve history.